Good morning, good morning.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars.
My name is Kyle Day. I'm the outgoing chair of the Downtown Davenport Partnership, and it's my honor to welcome you all to this year's 2022 DDP annual meeting. So thanks for being with us. This is always an event that we as stakeholders of Downtown Davenport look forward to, and this year's no different, especially with everything that's been going on in Davenport and this region. We have so much to celebrate today. So I want to start by introducing Davenport Mayor Mike Madsen, who's going to kick things off with some words of welcome. So join me in welcoming Mayor Madsen.
Thank you, everyone. Just want to take a moment, and my second honor, your first honor, to welcome everybody to Davenport, to the Gold Room, to the Blackhawk. Awesome day. Great to see everyone. Just want to take a moment. Elected officials, I see Representative Kurth, Mr. Kenobi, Ms. McGinnis, Mr. Ortiz, Mr. Grip. Anybody I'm missing, I apologize. Mr. Nauman, Bentdorf. Thanks for coming to Davenport. We're partners, right? We work together, so thank you, everyone. It's great to see everybody. Downtown evolving, great neighborhood. I mean, I tell the story, and he'll grab me and throw me off the stage, here in a moment. But when I grew up here, we know what the downtown looked like for many of you who have been around a long time. And when a dump's burning, downtown, and it's just terrible. And now, through the work of so many folks in this room, the evolution, the renaissance, the beginning and carrying on to what this place is, what people, when they come here, comment about, how wonderful it is, the city itself, the Quad Cities, but especially down here along our riverfront. I was just watching on Facebook with my good friend Bill Churchill, and he took a bike ride, and some of you might have seen the pictures already. And he's just taking pictures of all the places along the river, all that from the West End to Bettendorf, etc. The houses, the events, the things that go on, the new businesses, distillery. Thank you, for coming. Let's give them a hand, right? Everybody that's coming into this place, because it's such a wonderful, environment for business, for families. I always say, whatever you do, walk your dog. Mr. Kelly, I apologize. Anyone else I'm missing? I'm looking through and I'm looking at faces and they're grumbling at me because I didn't say so. I apologize to you. I might have to take you to the distillery because I owe you. But, you walk your dog, you raise your family, you run a business, do whatever you do, right? You should be able to do it here. You should do it here without worrying about stuff. And that's sometimes government, sometimes us, we need to get out of your way. Sometimes we need to assist, sometimes we just need to give advice, but that's what it's about, right? So we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to work with you and our city administrator, Ms. Spiegel, and our staff. I see Mr. Berger and some of our wonderful police officers. Let's give them a hand back there for doing the work. We should always take a moment. I see Sergeant Harris and Lieutenant Smith, the work that they do to help us be safe and work with our folks downtown. Let's specifically give them a hand. Right. And former Alderman Jason Gordon, I see you too. So I'm scanning. I still see. And I see representatives from Miller Meeks. I see representative from Mr. Grassley. And I apologize if there's others. So, again, thank you for what you do. Thank you for being partners. Thank you for making this place such a wonderful place to visit, live, work, etc. You're all critical to what we do, and I thank you for picking Davenport. So.
We recognize how fortunate we are to have such a strong partnership with the city of Davenport. Without that, we wouldn't be able to have the big goals and the big agenda that we have every year. And so we're grateful for the mayor, we're grateful for the city staff and the elected officials and their support of this downtown. I'll hand this over to Kyle, and we'll get into the meat of the presentation here shortly. But before we do that, there's a few different groups that I want to recognize and give thanks to. And the first is the Downtown Davenport Partnership staff. And so if you've got a yellow shirt on, or if you're associated with the Downtown Davenport Partnership as staff, if you just please stand so that we can acknowledge you and the work that you do. Again, we can't do the things that we aim to do as an organization if we can't execute on these things. And DDP staff, day in and day out, is getting things done. And so we're very, very grateful and appreciative of the work that they put in. The second group that I want to acknowledge and give thanks to is the Downtown Davenport Partnership Board of Directors. And so if you're currently serving on the board, would you please stand? We thank you for sharing your time and talents with this community, and the board is great, but I have to admit we'd be nothing without the 7 committees that are constantly serving across the spectrum of activities that we aim to focus on, whether it be grant review and approval, how to become a more welcoming and inclusive downtown, fireworks shows, you name it. These committees are the hands and feet to move these initiatives forward. And so if you serve in any way, any capacity on a committee, if you'd stand and be recognized. I know there's more than that. We're a humble group. We're a humble group. So we have so much to be thankful for, so much excitement, so much momentum, and so it's a great honor. It's with great excitement to introduce Kyle Carter, who will report on Downtown Davenport Partnership. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. I know most of the folks in this room, but for those who are new to our community, I'm Kyle Carter. I've been with the Downtown Davenport Partnership. As of this July, it'll be 17 years. This is actually my 10-year anniversary as the department head, if you will, and it's been a real honor and privilege to serve this community and this group of stakeholders that I cherish. Today we're going to go over a little bit about our organization as a whole, get into the recap of the last year, and start looking forward about what we can expect to see in the next coming year. But before we do that, I want to explain who we are and what we do and how it relates to the big picture. We're up there in that little green box, placemaking and place management, which is a term I'm going to get into and define more specifically here in a minute. But this is what we call our flywheel, or as what I refer to it more often as the three-legged stool. Because if any one part of this isn't standing strong or spinning, the whole thing collapses. We have a very unique relationship in this, in that we worry about quality of place. Now, of course, we do business and economic development and a little bit of talent attraction, too. But in the big picture, this is what we're trying to do. Because if we're going to attract people and we're going to get more investment, then we better have a place that people actually want to live. Because I don't care how many jobs you all create, if this isn't a place you want to live and your employees want to be, the whole thing collapses. So this is a very, very important role that we play, and one that I take great pride in with our staff and our board. Because capital follows talent, talent follows place, and place requires, frankly, investment. And in the new world, this is what we're up against. If we are able to actually have enough population here to fill these jobs that you create and to do the work that we need to do, we're going to be behind the 8 ball for a long time. So this is critical that we put this together. And place matters. And if you remember, once upon a time, this was, as the headlines show, a sinking ship. And these were what people saw in 1976 when they came down here. And the point that I'm making here is that the result of that was the creation of the Self-Supporting Municipal Improvement District, also known as the SMID, also known as a Business Improvement District, where the private sector partners with the public sector to do more than either party would ever be able to do on its own. This guy up here, Mr. Conway, was the OG, the first guy to ever have my job, back when it was the Downtown Development Corporation. And as a result, many years later, in 2000, we merged to actually create Downtown Davenport Partnership as a division of D1 at the time. But it married up a whole lot of other people that were doing economic development, people that were doing planning, people in the chamber, people from Rejuvenate, people from the original DDDC. All of this matters, in this context matters, because today we represent almost $200 million in assessed value, and that's actually minus Mid-American's building because of some wonky math. I think we easily hit 200 if you include that. But over 400 parcels, 250 businesses, 2,000 residents, and we are officially celebrating the 45th birthday of this business improvement district that has been approved over and over and over again throughout the years because it works. And we were the very first one in the state to ever do it, and we blazed the trail, and we still are. And everyone in this room should be deeply proud of this history, and frankly, we need to talk about it and recognize it a little bit more. But what the hell is place management anyway, right? What is this weird jargon that we tend to use? Well, it's three big buckets of work: business and economic growth, infrastructure livability, advocacy, and promotion. Everything we do lives underneath one of these buckets, and thanks to our budget that you provide, we're able to do a lot more than other communities with this organization. We touch every one of these things in one way, shape, or form. And most importantly, we've been doing it so long now that we're recognized as industry leaders. We are now a part of the International Downtown Association. I was fortunate enough to get a certification in place management this year, which is a brand new dedication. We have spoken at the Iowa Tourism Conference, worked with Debbie Durham and her team, who I hear might be on the virtual slide right now. And I also sit on the Enhance Iowa and CAT boards, helping with tourism across the state. So this stuff matters because we as an organization need to recognize that we are at a level of excellence, I believe, that is on par with anybody I've ever met at these IDA conferences that we go every year. And that's good leadership from this room over 45 years, frankly. So the district, as you know it, is basically from bridge to bridge, from river to about 5th or 6th Street, depending where you're looking at. This is the taxing body that actually supplies our funding, in addition to, of course, Rhythm City. Mo is in the room. We'll touch a little bit more on that later. But this is the district that pays the bills, and this is how we define our formal downtown. Kyle Day did a fine job of recognizing our staff already, so thank you for that. I want to reiterate that I could do nothing but for the other people in this room. Everybody in a green shirt in the back corner, Alicia, Jason, and Tony constantly make me look really good, and without their work, this thing would collapse. So thank you for all that you guys do. And particularly with the ambassador team this year, we doubled the number of people on our team. We have a contract with the city that we're very proud of and take very seriously, where we are responsible for cleaning the parking ramps, cleaning the sidewalks, graffiti removal, dealing with dog waste, being a friendly face. These guys and Tony and his team are the very first point of contact for a lot of people, and I could not be prouder of the job that they're doing right now. I think downtown is as clean as it's ever been, and it's looking tip-top. We also have our new friend Emily Dibley, who is our community navigator, but I want to touch a little bit more on that later because Emily has a very special role. So on to business and economic growth and the big storylines from the year. Just as a reminder, our income and expenses, we had about $1.5 million in income, with Rhythm City producing a very large amount this year, which we're deeply grateful for. And our expenses were about 1.2. So we came out ahead largely because Rhythm City was doing so well this year, and we do receive a small portion of that. For those of you who've been around a long time, we were fortunate enough to be a part of the agreement that stayed true to the original nuance of gaming in Iowa, in that part of the proceeds go to help our riverfronts and our downtowns continue to develop. And we are eternally grateful for that, for everyone at RDA and Rhythm City. So, master plan. If you'll remember, we did a lot of work throughout the pandemic with the city of Davenport to get this thing off the ground. I'm very proud to say that 75% of our 0 to 2 year goals are already done. We have a lot of percentages you'll see up there on our longer term stuff that's cooking too. And I want you to realize that everything that you see today feeds back through this big idea. We are not working haphazardly in any way, shape, or form. The big 5 that came out of that, of playful, livable, innovative, inclusive, and celebrated, again, we'll speak to more in depth as I go, but these are the themes of what this master plan is all about and how we integrate into our work plan. So what did it help produce this year? A whopping $31 million in projects that we'll talk about in a second were built this year and completed. Another $56 million under construction as we speak, $26 million in planned projects, and we've invested well over $650 million, cruising toward that billion mark in the not too distant future. And that is a number that would have blown some people's minds in 1990. And I think we need to, every once in a while, to stop, breathe, give ourselves a little grace, recognize that the world is a really weird place right now. But despite it all, and despite all the headwinds, global pandemics, flooding, the world burning half the time, we have still managed to get this done in a community that's split between two states, in a community that has multiple municipalities, and in a downtown that frankly has struggled at times. So please, please take a moment to feel good about this. And here's a marker of where we've been in the last 10 years. From 2010, we had $109 million in assessed value down here. We're all the way up to $186 million right now. And again, this is minus the Mid-American numbers. If you'll see, the last time we reported this, we were at 176, and we've jumped all the way to 186. So growth continues for your values of your properties. So what were some of these great projects? Well, the headline stuff, of course, is the new construction that came out of the ground and changed a little bit of our skyline. Urbane 210 and 400 River are two spectacular new apartment buildings downtown. We saw multiple restaurants open. Rob Wolf snuck over on 5th Street, in case anybody hadn't noticed. That's a really cool business. The Davenport Bank building, the garage that's there, has apartments on the top floor of it now. A lot of people had no idea that was going on. That's a really cool and very beautiful project. One of my favorites is our good friend Gwendolyn, who is owner of rubberstamps.net, who literally rose from the ashes to rebuild her business after a terrible tragedy and a fire earlier, I think it's been a couple of years now, or at least 1 year. They purchased the old Mid-American building there, adjacent to the Quad City Times, and it's a spectacular small light manufacturing facility now. These are just a handful of ones, Mississippi Distilling and a few others, that make up 15 projects out of that 31 million. In addition to all that, and mixed into some of that, were 21 new retained or expanded businesses in the past year. Again, under the cloud of everything that's been going on, we continue to push forward. There's a lot of, I'll slip back, Nelson was a really exciting one, Daiquiri Factory. There's been a lot of just good small businesses, and I'll speak a little bit more on those later. But projects that are currently under construction, you'll see several historic buildings here, which, by the way, are concentrated on the west end of downtown. The Call and the Capitol building are nearly done. You've probably saw that 3rd and Main Street has a giant hole in it right now. Very excited to see that a new apartment building is going to rise out of what has been vacant lot now for a very long time. Federal Point is a massive project on the new YMCA site on the east end of downtown. And again, down in the bottom right corner, this is technically out of our taxing district by a hair, just outside of our official downtown borders. But our good friends at the Mexican grocery store and restaurant had another terrible fire, speaking of fires, and have already rebuilt a brand new facility, and that place is awesome. We love them and LaFinca and all the other folks that are just on the edges of our neighborhood. But you'll see these other historic renovations, and the Hiller building, which I will freely admit, Marion, you got me on this one. I really thought that thing was going to get torched. Its foundations were messed up. It had serious problems. It's a small building that's hard to squeeze money out of after you got to dump a fortune into it to get it up. You helped Jamie get so many tax credits. Like when you looked at the incentive list on that, it was like a scroll. To pull that off is something truly special. And I hope Jamie's in the room. If he's not, big old kudos for that guy. This is an extraordinarily hard project to pull off, and saving that building will make the fabric of our downtown better. So thank you for that. And that's like a scale of 11 on a 10 on hard. So thank you. Planned projects, big and small. There's a whole lot coming. I'm going to talk more about Martin Luther King Park later, as well as the YMCA site, some of the other maybe less obvious ones. The building down here in the bottom right-hand corner, this is out on the western end of downtown as well. They are about to start construction on that, the Bowstring Lofts. There's still some exciting activity out on East 2nd Street. These are all projects that, when I say planned, it means that they have public documents that are available. They're out there. They're maybe close to getting their financing done, or they have something in the works, but they are likely to get done. I don't put anything on this list that I think is a long shot. These are all more likely than not to get done. And there's a whole lot of other projects that are hiding out there that are not in this list that I hope will get done, but I'm not going to throw on a screen up here and talk about just yet. But over the last couple of years, we've done a lot of work in grants and leveraging new private investment. One of our favorite ones this year was, of course, Daiquiri Factory. I don't know if Kyle Peters is in the room or not today, but the transformation at 3rd and Harrison Street is incredible. This guy took one of our most challenging corners and a place that we've had a lot of problems with and made it into one of the most spectacular, beautiful, modern facilities in downtown Davenport, and I cannot thank Kyle enough for that investment. And meanwhile, our grants also went into a lot of other projects. You may have noticed the back of the Dav building looking a lot better these days. We also invested on the interior of a lot of building and leveraged some other dollars for not just Daiquiri Factory, but Mississippi River Distilling. And our little bit of money always takes your lot of money and takes it a lot further. So thank you for working with us and making that possible. But one of our favorite stories this year is our new program for entrepreneurs that was launched as a result of the master plan, pointing out that there's a lack of diversity in this downtown. There's a lack of investment and capital available for a lot of people who may have not always been at the table to get that capital. And we needed to not only just help entrepreneurs, which we are, but have a separate bucket of money specifically for minority and women-owned businesses. And this was our very first one. Erica just did an incredible job. She received $5,000 from us to help her retail business get off the ground. She does amazing things with balloons I didn't even know was physically possible. She brought in a balloon with like a bear inside of it, and it was like a ship in a bottle. Like, how did that even get in there? It was, it's amazing. And Erica's just a sweetheart. This was one of the fastest projects I've ever been a part of. She came in and met us. Within 3 weeks, she had a lease signed, all of her paperwork done. It was like cutting a ribbon and moving in like a month and a half. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody move that quick before, but please check her out on East 2nd Street. She's in the old, she's right off East 2nd in the Mid-American property. But speaking of retail, one of the things I don't think we talk enough is about how much revenue all this stuff produces for the community and for the city. These are some big numbers, both in food and beverage, specialty retail, and just our overall tax, sales tax dollars generated in 52801. I mean, we're talking $87 million a year just in sales tax. That has nothing to do with property tax. That's just in sales tax. And of course, we took the hit during COVID and saw that number dip in food and beverage. But FY21 this is a year lagging. Remember, tax dollars come in a year later. So this isn't current data. This was last June. We had already bounced back from 987 back up to 1.18. I have no doubt that when we have this meeting next year, that number is going to be even higher, showing great recovery there. But this is, downtown punches above its weight. This little geography generates a ton of money. And we can never forget how efficient and important that is as a community. So some other key performance indicators you're going to see us start reporting on going forward. This was something the Chamber Board was very passionate about and something that we agreed really needed to do more. We always tell you the number of net new businesses, but we're going to be talking about giving better estimates on how much construction we expect to see in a given year. I kind of talked about that in the planned section. A healthy residential market is 92 to 95% occupied. We are, more on that later. And a healthy downtown market is 85 to 88% occupied. We need to get some baseline numbers on that. I do not know where we land in that. I feel confident we're close, but that's something that we're going to get some baseline data and start reporting on how close we are to that number. And of course, one of my favorite stats this year, and one that I'm going to start reporting to you every year now, is total properties sold. So even though a big project may not have happened or something sexy is in the newspaper, 18 properties sold downtown for a total of $8.6 million of property just changing hands. That tells you people want to be down here, and I think it's important. So let's move on to infrastructure and livability, because the city of Davenport deserves an immense amount of credit for the work that they did with H.R. Green to get not just a flood plan, but as the mayor puts it so often, a flood mitigation system. Because the truth is we got 9 miles and none of it's the same. This is scalpel, not machete. Every single chunk of this community needs something different. Some of it's underground, some of it's overground, some of it's operational, has nothing to do with infrastructure at all. But in downtown Davenport, and particularly, we have a mix of all those things. We're going to need a little bit of it all, and we're going to take time to fund it. Most importantly, though, the city took action. They listened to the business community, listened to the public, and I do think that the community and the business has supported this plan because it's good. It was very well done, and H.R. Green knew what they were doing, and the city did a great job working with them and making sure that the outcome was good. What I'm most excited about is that the first project that's going to happen is going to be up here on River Drive where 3rd and 4th Street meet. All of you know that water always gets up on the road and cuts us off like a tourniquet at very low levels of flooding, say 17, 18 feet. All of a sudden, Bettendorf is no longer connected. You can't go east and west. The west end is screwed. This is a major pinch point. Well, the truth is, this isn't a problem of water coming up. It's a water coming under. This is a sewer problem. The first thing that the city is going to invest in next year, you're going to see this construction. They already let the bid. Is that work underground is going to fix the sewer system so that when the water comes up, there's not water on the street until much higher levels. It's my understanding that it will be around 21 feet of water before that road would be cut off. Think about your businesses, think about your accessibility, and think about how immensely valuable that is. So much of the 2019 flood wasn't the actual day that it blew, which was awful, and I know that, and it cost everybody a lot of money. But we lost damn near as much money in the weeks and weeks that we were just cut off, where you couldn't get down here and business could not get done. So I am thrilled that the city is doing this. Double thumbs up, mayor, council, Corey, Public Works. I mean, you name it. There's a laundry list a million long. But for the actions of that, I don't know that this business community has the confidence to keep investing. And as we've seen, they are. So something's working here. Related to that is the other elephant in the room of CP Rail. This is a challenge of an old town like ours where the railroad jams right through it. Everybody knows the railroad does what it wants and that they have the best laws in the world to protect what they want to do. So how do you work with that? The city is actively working with CP right now to look and see where we can get some new pedestrian and driving overpasses. We're looking at quiet zones, so when they're railing on the horn and waking you up at 3 in the morning, hotel people, I know this, you particularly hate that, we have the opportunity to stop that stuff and do something better, where the horns aren't blaring all the time, where there are safe crossings. All that's a work in progress. That's not a fully baked deal yet, but please know that the city is working very hard behind the scenes to figure out where and how much. And I'm going to talk a little about that later when we get to Destination Iowa stuff. But between flooding, the train, the fact that we need to activate this space and use it, because the truth is 99% of the time it's fine. So what are we doing with it? How are we having fun? What are we building? The play area is something that we'll talk about a little bit later too. All of it has to work together. We're going to have to chew gum and walk at the same time. There is no singular answer to this. No one is unilaterally right on this issue. Just please know that once we actually put all of it on the table, there is a way to make that puzzle fit. And I think we're close, and we're closer than we've ever been. So moving a little bit quicker now, I want to move into the interior downtown. Kaiserslautern Square was another public-private partnership. A lot of different people came to the table in the private sector and the public sector to make this happen. We had our very own Christmas tree for the very first time downtown. We were able to have our own Rockefeller Center, if you will, and it felt really, really good. And if your kids haven't come down to play on the fog machine down here, please do it. It's a riot. It's super fun. This is a space that was in terrible condition and is now a real gem in downtown. Speaking of the people, again, who take care of all this stuff 7 days a week, one of the things that has really hit us lately is graffiti. Tony and the team have removed over 116 graffiti marks over this last year. And we also started doing snow removal in the parking lanes. One of the things that you as our stakeholders routinely complained about is that when the plows come through, there was a knee-high level of snow left on the curb. And everybody did this when we were trying to figure out whose responsibility is it to get rid of that. Well, Tony and his team in the last year and in partnership with Public Works figured out that we can go in and shovel that stuff out with some light equipment, and when the city comes and picks it all up, we have a much cleaner, much more useful downtown during the wintertime. That's a footnote in here, but it's a really big deal every January and February, and I just wanted to take a moment to point that out. Here are some of the stats of what our team's been up to. 509 cubic yards of trash, 116 graffiti tags removed, 162 gallons of dog waste, which is lovely. This is the work that if it's not getting done, you will notice. But we should all be very happy that you're not noticing it, I hope. But moving back to someone I kind of blew through really quickly that's very special and very important to how downtowns have evolved across the nation is our community navigator, which both Bechtel Trust and the RDA co-funded our pilot program for and is now a permanent fixture of our organization. It is everybody knows that homelessness, substance abuse, mental health issues are very serious in this country. Downtown is the theater in which all of that plays out. We have to have something in the mix from the business community to be a part of that solution. We will never replace our social service partners, but many of them are in the room right now. Chris, with Humility in particular, was our very first partner on this. Very special place in the afterlife for this guy. The amount of work that goes into making sure that if someone wants a resource and they can find it and they trust the person that they're talking to. Emily Dibley, shown here, has been thrown into the fire over the last year and a half or so and has really learned in real time on the street how to make sure that we are doing our best to develop relationships with chronically homeless and at least offering the opportunity, because the service side is amazing. The people in this room and outside this room that provide these services do incredible work. The county, I know, funds a ton of it. Lori Elam does incredible work. But if the person doesn't find the service, what good is it? And what Emily's role really is, and the community navigator role, is to have a better chance that that person gets where they want to go. And that takes time and repetition. And this is something I'm deeply proud of our board for funding. I'm deeply proud that it's part of our culture and organization. And more importantly, maybe than that, is that this is an international best practice. When you go to the IDA conferences, this was the #1 issue brought up by every downtown director in the country. We are not alone. In fact, there are places dealing with this in levels that would make your head spin. We're lucky that it's as manageable as it is in this community. But thank you to the people who provide the service. Thank you to Emily, Tony, and the team for being this new middleman role that we've developed. And we've got a lot more to do here with Vera French and Open Network and Davenport Police. It takes a village, man. And I am glad that this is now part of our work plan. So one last note on kind of the security and public asset front. We are exploring new improvements for the Mid-American ramp, for the Redstone ramp, the Sky Bridge. They're physical things that we can do to improve these spaces that will improve their security. Those aren't fully baked yet. Nicole and I at Public Works and Rich have been working really hard behind the scenes. There's a great list. We've been talking about greater patrols and how we can do that. That's all a work in progress, but wanted you guys to know that it's on the table, and there's more that we're going to do in this department once we get a little further down the road on that. Complete streets, though, is one of my favorite topics. If you guys have been watching me for a while, this is a very deep passion of mine, because I believe that lighting and sidewalks say a lot about how much you care about the community you live in. If it looks like shit, people think you're garbage community. And that's the truth, man. I know you've been to other communities and walked around and seen dark places with broken sidewalks and had an opinion about that community as a result of it. We, many years ago with the city, built this new triple partnership between DDP, the private property owner, and the city to split the cost of getting this stuff done. East 2nd Street looks spectacular. If you've not walked on it recently over there by Raccoon Motel, it's lit like a Christmas tree at night. It feels safe. It's ADA compliant. Accessibility is one of those things that gets skipped over all the time. If you're in a wheelchair down here and you hit a bad sidewalk, it's not pleasant. This thing is about as silky smooth as you'll ever find, and we're doing this over and over again. We also added upgraded electrical system to better connect into the public grid, and that's a work in progress. But we also added lights on 5th Street over by Rob Wolf's new joint, and on Iowa Street near the Stardust. And we'll keep doing that in areas that we can't afford to do the full streetscape, but we still need lighting and safety, and we'll keep doing that. Next year, we're going to be building on 3rd Street in front of Analog, the office, and Boozy's in that area, which is one of our worst sidewalks downtown. So excited to get that off the ground. And by the way, there's 20-foot vaults underneath that, so it was really hard to engineer. It took a while. Jen Walker at the city has done an amazing job guiding that program, by the way. And then this fall, you'll see 2nd Street resurfaced. So I know it looks like a meteor hit East 2nd Street. We're all aware of that. This fall, it will finally be repaved, and with the streetscape done, it's going to look really good. So pretty stoked about that. So other things that we've been investing in, I mentioned that this is just our capital budget of where our dollars went this year. We actually approved a lot more than this, but we don't count it until the money is spent. So these were the projects that got done this year that make up that number. One of the other things we're going to be doing is alley improvements. So there's 2 new alleys that the city is going to be repaving downtown, but on the heels of that, we want to start looking at how we can activate our alleys. We recognize the dumpsters got to work, that you got to have traffic that can get through it, but especially after dark, these alleys are very highly populated with pedestrians. How can we better light them, activate them, have events in them, do artwork? We have some concepts here that are still just concepts, but we budgeted $60,000 to begin more work on this next year. And our board still needs to prioritize where we want to go. But Drew Dasso and his team helped us put this together. I'm really excited about that, particularly on East 2nd Street and behind Forest Block. I think those are 2 areas that we can really have a comfortable pedestrian mall if we do it right. So speaking of art, Alicia Espy has been in my ear for a couple of years now that we need to get back on the art train. And we've done public art for years downtown, but it's been a while. And so we partnered with Quad City Arts. I hope you see all the new sculptures downtown, the murals that are going in at 4th and Pershing right now, and we're going to continue to invest, and we increased our arts budget for the coming year as well. You're going to see more, not less of this going forward. So as far as livability goes, you can't have livability without housing. As far as housing goes, we are at almost 1,700 units at this point in downtown, and that's just in our taxing district borders. I take that back. There's a couple that are right on the edge. It's very, very close, immediately adjacent. Anyway, we've got 300 more under construction, another 200 planned, and we had a housing study that showed that we're at 96.4% occupancy. That's incredible. After all the crazy stuff that's happened, we have fully rebounded from the flood, and we have fully rebounded from COVID on housing. We're also building low-income housing, a lot of them, 185 units at Federal Point and 64 units in the Call building. So market rate is not the only thing being built down here, far from it. In fact, those numbers are bigger than some of our market rate numbers. I know housing is a whole other conversation we could have a 2-hour meeting on, and this is not going to just solve housing in this community. Again, national crisis, but I can proudly say that we are part of the solution down here in building as much of a balance as we can. We, in fact, did a marketing campaign that was really successful to help make sure that that occupancy remained really high. Alicia put that together with our chamber communications team and Jen, and it was wildly successful. So speaking of promotions, that's our last category here before we start looking to the future. Government and policy, this is bread and butter. One of the number one reasons that you employ the Downtown Partnership is to make sure that we're working with our local, state, and federal governments to ensure that good policies, whether it's dumpster policies, traffic calming, Enhance Iowa, grant funding, all of it flows through our organization in some way, shape, or form. So I'm proud of the work we've done this year, and thank you to all of the elected officials in the room for being such good partners. Friendly reminder that we do have 4 historic districts now downtown, and one of the most exciting things is we're doing a little bit of Black history research that I'm going to touch more on in a minute. But this was still fairly recent news and offers a ton of benefits for you as a property owner. Our good buddy Dave is over here on my left from Visit Quad Cities, who helped with the Chamber launch a brand new branding campaign, the QC That's Where. You're going to see more and more of this. It's still in its infancy, but we're going to do our best to brand ourselves as a region, part of a region, because we are, and the Quad Cities is going to have to present itself as a unit if we're ever going to be able to be understood by the outside world. Nobody cares about our internal politics or our fiefdoms inside the Quad Cities. We've got to speak as one unit when we're talking outside of the world, and this is the brand that will help do that. And Dave, thank you, and of course Jen and everyone on the Chamber team that put in so much work on that. So what are we talking about when we're branding and marketing? Well, we're out there talking about our small businesses. Some of the people in this room are my favorite people that run the tiniest businesses in our city. They make up the lifeblood and the backbone of who we are. Whether you're a small advertising agency, whether you are a retail business, it is all part and parcel to making up who we are. We did a lot of promotion. The pickle hunt was a wild success this Christmas, which I did not see that coming, but it was really popular. And these are just some stats on the number of people that go through our website, our socials. We still do a lot of work on this front and have a big online footprint. Events, arts and culture, Blues Fest, the just number of events. There's a good Raccoon Motel shot here. The parade was great this year with Quad City Arts. There's just always so much going on. And never forget that we built all of this on the back of the arts. In the early 2000s, when we built the Figgy, we built the RME, we built all this stuff, German American heritage, etc. Arts and entertainment drove our growth, and we should be very cognizant of that going forward. There was all kinds of good news this year. New businesses. I've talked a lot about it, but I just wanted to point out there that there have been positive headlines in 2022. And most recently, we've been hearing about Red, White, and Boom. We've got a new agreement in place with Davenport and Rock Island to make sure that the fireworks go off for years and years to come. We're very proud of that agreement, and the city has really stepped up. The programming in LeClaire Park is going to be bigger and better than it's ever been. Quinlan Court's going to be activated, and can't thank the city enough for stepping up and doing that. And our role is to make sure that the fireworks get up in the sky and everybody wins. So it's a good partnership and one across the river that I'm happy with. And iStravaganza was another success, but we expanded it this year. If you remember, we added a drive-through to increase its accessibility, and we had bigger crowds than we've ever had before, and we're going to keep investing in this event. Speaking of, Bix is right around the corner. We also have we've got event grants now to help smaller events get off the ground and help to get more diverse events in downtown. So we've got a little bit more work to do there, but I think this is a great trajectory that we're on right now. But my favorite event of all is Alternating Currents, because this is our opportunity to showcase the Quad Cities, let alone downtown Davenport, as the cultural center of this region. 100 different performances, 25 venues, comedy, art, film, and this year, Jason landed a big fish. We were able to get a Stephen King event that's officially sponsored at the Figgy in the theater. There will be, I don't have time to get into it, but they're called Dollar Baby Movies. It's a Stephen King related event that we should be thrilled we got because it's the only one in the world. These movies will not be shown anywhere else at any other time, and you definitely need to be in that theater at Alternating Currents this year. So, looking forward, and I promise I'm wrapping up here, what is the big picture? This is a great photograph that people don't see often looking the other way across downtown. And you get to see these big old one-way pairs that are running through it really clearly here. More on that in a minute. But this building here is gone. Many of these buildings are selling. And there's a level of energy on the west end of downtown that I've not seen in my 17-year career. And that's in large part because of what the Y is providing an opportunity for us to take advantage of. But beyond that, you see the riverfront out here, you see the core, and you see our eastern edge over there, and you start to realize just how connected and small this really is. One of the things I'm most proud of is I think we are finally starting to stitch our disparate parts together and to create critical mass. Particularly about critical mass on the west end, every yellow box you see here is either an active project, a recently built project, or one that's in the works. That is a lot of yellow between Gaines and Harrison Street that I've not seen it ever before. There is a reason that these people are investing around here, and it's because this gateway, its time has come, and everything in between is going to get there too. It's been a long, hard slog to finally start to see us creeping west, but it's really happening, and it's going to take more time. It ain't going to happen overnight. But this is a great example and a visual I wanted to show to help people understand that there is life where maybe you didn't think there was, and there is progress where there is currently demolition. The YMCA, by the way, has multiple developers interested in that site that are all very high quality and have good ideas that I believe would be anchors for our western development. So there's not a lot else I can say at this point on that other than the Y has been a good steward of it, and I think whoever is the ultimate selection for that site is going to do something really great for this corner. So back to the other end of downtown is Motor Row's resurgence. The East End, East 2nd, Pershing, River Drive, all the area that was affected by the flood has been reinvested in very heavily. In fact, one could argue it's one of the best-looking corners of downtown at this point. And this community should feel very proud about the fact that it accomplished that in that little time. There's more to do. It's not done, but it feels good to see that resurgence. And Martin Luther King Park, you guys have been hearing about for a while. 5th and Brady. The Friends of Martin Luther King, Ryan Sadler, who's here today, their leadership has made sure that a corner of downtown that was forgotten is not forgotten ever again. They are well on their way to financing this beautiful park. And they're also, they've submitted a grant to the state to look up some local black history, specifically black-owned businesses. What a lot of people don't know is that this stretch of 5th and Brady once housed many black businesses. It was a corridor known for black-owned businesses. It's dating back to the 1800s. There were many businesses owned by black Americans that have been completely forgotten in this community. We have an opportunity not just to celebrate that heritage, but everyone's culture in this community at this site. Ryan has always said over and over again, this space will be for everyone. But it's going to tell some really important stories that have been just lost over time. I can't wait to see how the research ultimately ties back to what is framed up in the park. But the park is going to be more than just that. So this is coming around the corner. Thank you, Friends of Martin Luther King, for your leadership on this project. Thank you to the city of Davenport for writing a big check to get them off the ground. And just this is one of the things that I am personally most excited about. Because I think when you hear the stories of the people from the 1800s and early 1900s that were doing big things down here, it might redefine our history and change our history books forever. Thanks, Dave. So, how do we take advantage of all these opportunities? Destination Iowa was a big grant opportunity you probably heard about from the state of Iowa. City of Davenport, City of Bettendorf, City of LeClaire are all working very diligently to see how they can take advantage of these placemaking grants that are out there. Without getting into too much detail, the gist of it is that there's a lot of assets that we could install along our riverfront to activate it. It all connects to the trail that goes down to Bettendorf, who's doing their own urban development and park development, and down to LeClaire, who has some big ideas too. Each community is currently working through which assets that they think the state will help fund, and how we package that in a way that it tells the state of Iowa that we're a team here in the Quad Cities. It doesn't mean that each community won't have its own thing or its own investment, but the fact is the parties involved in this are all talking to each other, communicating, coordinating, and whatever we put forth to the state of Iowa will have a storyline that's cohesive. And so I'm thrilled to see that we've made some progress on the play area, but we have connectivity. We want to connect the farmers market over the railroad tracks to the back of the baseball stadium. How do we better take advantage of the Ferris wheel and all the incredible investments in the baseball park so that they're accessible? If there's a play area down here, how does it talk to and work to these areas? How does it speak to the Figgy and what it has to offer, or frankly, Martin Luther King Park, et cetera, and how is it all pushed down the river toward LeClaire? So it's a complicated thing I could talk for an hour about, and I do not have the time, but trust me, there's a hell of a lot of work going on in the background on this, and I think you're going to probably see an application this summer with decisions made this fall by the state on where this is going. But it wouldn't be an annual meeting without a one-way conversation. And I have been building toward this because I hope that big picture photo you saw reminded you just how obscenely large and how incredible the capacity is of these two thoroughfares, I would argue freeways, that cut through the heart of our community. And so when you get back to it, why was this infrastructure built in the first place? When was it built? What purpose was it trying to serve, and what was it trying to solve? Does any of that even matter anymore? What does the current infrastructure of downtown look like? But what do we want to do about it? The eternal question is getting its vote. As the aldermen are keenly aware in this room, there will be a vote on this summer in one way, shape, or form. There's a work session at a minimum coming on this to discuss the results of what the city staff is currently doing their homework on. So I want to point out the benefits. You are the stakeholders. You pay me. I only have a job because of what you've created. And so all we've been trying to do as an organization is leverage and maximize those dollars that you provided in the first place. Because traffic calming is better for a mixed-use neighborhood that has 2,000 individuals living in it. It's better for small business, particularly to the west, as we start to expand and look at ways that are out of the floodplain, frankly, further toward Marquette and beyond. Your better time to destination. It may actually be faster for you to get where you want to go if there are stop signs and not stoplights everywhere. If I can pull off River Drive at 4th Street and get to Lopez and not do a stupid loop. How many of you parking this morning, getting to the Black Hawk, drove around a couple extra blocks for no apparent reason? Yes, that's right. And was the congestion just so intense that you couldn't handle it? No, not at all. Flood resilience. We need a better, more complete street grid. When water cuts us off, it is better to have more directions you can go than one direction you can go to deal with it, particularly up at 4th and 3rd. And coming up with mid-sized competing cities. Everybody else is doing that. More on that here in a sec. But where did this all begin? 1945, we've been arguing about this for a long time. They took 5 years to argue about it in the 1940s, and they ultimately finally built it in 1954. Because there was congestion. And this is what it looked like every day, all the time, because there were 9 department stores in downtown, every bank in the world, no internet, no ATMs, and every human being in this city came here to do every ounce of its business. And as much as I would love to say that was true today, it is not. So, in the 70s, we decided that we wanted to triple down on this and get to the north end of town as fast as we could. Note the language being used here, freeways or one-ways. Thankfully, a freeway was not built through Gain Street and demolishing historic neighborhoods. However, the compromise was to build a one-way that was seen as just as fast and efficient to get people out of here. Because remember that slide at the beginning in 1976 where it looked like hell down here? People weren't interested in hanging around downtown. They were interested in getting out. And this was a really efficient way to do that. One of my favorite slides there is the reminder of the context of these decisions and how and when they were made. But by 1994, we had done something else. We built the River Center North in the 80s, and we built River Center South in the 90s, which also deleted Perry Street. So you lost a complete north-south part of our grid, in addition to the fact that we're still only going in one direction on both sides. Meanwhile, malls have decimated retail in downtown. Big box retail, offices have moved to the north, and we're a shell of our former selves by 1994. All of the infrastructure that we're discussing was involved during the 70s and 1950s to solve problems that, frankly, do not exist today because this happened. Because the people in this room busted their ass, invested over the last 40 years to create this magic. This magic of a renaissance, of a residential neighborhood, of $650 million, completely transforming who is down here, when they're down here, how they get down here, and why they care in the first place to be down here. So in that context, we've been arguing about this since the year 2000, when the very first proposal from Davenport 1 came forward, and DDP, who said, perhaps the world has changed, and perhaps our infrastructure should match the needs of what we need today and into the future. Each bubble you see here is each time we've argued about it. 22 is when we are finally going to actually have a decision on this issue. What the city is doing right now is critically important. Staff is doing really good work to explore loading zones, to explore how where stop signs maybe should or shouldn't be. How do we make sure that there's not a backup at Red Band, or how do we make sure that access is equal and equitable as it can be, delivery trucks, etc. But meanwhile, I want to remind you what the data says and what the actual traffic engineers who are professionals have to say about this. Our traffic counts aren't even in the neighborhood of what traffic engineers qualify as, quote, congestion. In fact, we're so low on the meter that we barely register. We're at the highest capacity you could imagine right now and what we can do. It's an excellent level of service. And we've done this before. So as you may know, DDP is willing to commit $70,000 a year ongoing to help mitigate this over the next 10 years with the city. Ironically enough, back in August of 1980, The very first public-private partnership between the newly formed Downtown Corporation and the city was a Main Street lane reduction and beautification project. And if you go back and read the papers, it's all the same stuff. There's a guy on this side who's like, oh my God, the sky's going to fall. And there's a guy on the other side, oh, Main Street will be fine. Turned out it was fine. I think we can agree to that now. But the Chamber and DDP specifically has partnered with the city a million times. And the big ones, we paid off the parking right bonds with the city just a couple of years ago. We helped build the Radisson years ago. And I mentioned the old program. We're just talking about doing it one more time, and this time applying it to our streets. Because 78 other cities have already done this. And I refuse to believe that Davenport is somehow so unique and so different that we can't figure out loading zones, that we can't figure out how to do all of these different things that are important and nuanced. Peoria, investing $14 million. We're asking for 1.7. So we can do this. It does have a benefit. Please make sure you talk to your elected officials so that they hear from people who do support this and understand this on a deeper level. This is for you to make more money, for the community to be more pleasant, for the residents to have a better experience. We're just trying to invest in the infrastructure that matches the community we've become. Because if we don't build a place that matters, we will not get talent, and you definitely aren't growing your business. Because we are investing for the long game, and I will put this slide up here at the end of every presentation until I don't have this job anymore. We build something special downtown. It is bigger than the sum of its parts. It is special in a way that is hard to define with numbers. But because of what you guys do, we won't falter at producing something greater in this community. Thank you for your investment, and thank you for being here this morning.